Greetings, everyone. There's a poll question for you today, and the question is, how often do you use cash when paying today? For anything, really. Food, gas, clothing, bills, etc. Get over there and vote in that poll. I'll put the link to this poll question in the chat right now, and we'll be with you live in just a moment. Greetings to Rob Tick, who says straight cash, homie. Warrior V, Julie Pachuli, Melissa Benitez is with you. True Tube is with us. There's Jack Burton and David Green. Are these pseudonyms? Delta Jungly is with us. Eddie Cassidy, Albert Quiros, Doug Probst, God's Will is with us. That is extremely important. Kelly Henson, good to see you out there. Thanks for being here. John Wayne, as always. Let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. God bless John Wayne. I see Bess out there in the chat. Bess MCQ. Kathy Arguello is with us. And you're welcome, by the way. I see Kenny. Kenny's out there. Kenny says he got the notification today. That's good news. And of course, the lovely Summer will be with you in the chat today. If you have any specific questions about the content, you got some Bible questions or comments you want to specifically send my way, if you'll address them to Summer, she'll send them over to me and I'll see them that way. Keep it clean, my friends. Keep it clean.
In which the hammer comes down and beats you over the head for the rest of your life with a big national security stick.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights and to create a new world order.
Armor of Truth Live. Faith is resistance.
Find us at the Brad from Carolina YouTube channel. armoroftruth.net.
Absolutely, of course. Hold on there, Richard Dolan. Absolutely, armoroftruth.net. That's where you can find us out on the internet. We want to make an announcement about armoroftruth.net here. Of course, we're under construction right now. We're making some changes. We've got a show coming up this Friday with Days of Noah on the website, not here on YouTube. We're together on YouTube some, but you want to hear the straight story? Join us Friday evening at 6 p.m. at armoroftruth.net for myself and Days of Noah, where we will discuss things that can't be said around here. Welcome, everybody, to the show for today. Poll question. Let's dive right into that. Poll question for you today. Let me go ahead and update it. So far, we've got 65 votes in. That's nice. I did share this over on Twitter as well, so maybe some folks over there will see it and come join us live. Here you go. How often do you use cash today when paying for food, gas, clothing, bills, etc., etc.? So interesting. We have some results, and so far, 35% of you say I almost never use cash. That's not surprising to me today. That's not a shocker. What is shocking to me is to see this down here at the bottom. Almost 30% of you saying that you almost always pay with cash. So your choices are almost never use it about in 1/3 of my transactions. I use it in about 2/3 of my transactions. Or I always pay with cash. So your options are more like never, sometimes, most of the time, or almost always. And it's split out. It's split up. It's the least amount of votes so far. People saying they use cash in about 2/3 of their transactions. So the majority so far is less people are using cash. So 50. Is that 61? Sorry, I'm doing the math in my head. That's scary when I have 61% of you polled so far are on the lower side of using cash. Almost never to about 1/3 of the time. To about 39% of you saying that you almost always use cash. So there's that. Let's see what the comments say. Emilios Man says, past 2 years, been trying to use cash as much as possible. Interesting. Yes, I see that as a way that people are using cash to sort of fight back, or maybe to, in a way, stand up against the globalist movement, or maybe to stay out of the track-em system, the system of tracking your financial activity all over the place. Big Brian Brown says, I suppose it depends on what I'm buying. If I'm at a gas station or a takeout place, I use the credit card. But for prepping things, I'd rather not have that tracked. Cash is king, and it probably always will be. When we're talking about cash, we're talking about whatever the coin of the realm might be at the time. It could come down to where the coin of the realm is ammunition. Right now, it's still cash. Albert Quiros says, yep, keep using cash as much as possible. My circumstances don't allow me to have a bank account or card. Your circumstances don't allow you to have a bank account. Interesting. We'd like to hear more about that, Albert Quiros. I've been seeing a lot of old money circulating, he says. Interesting. Very interesting. God's Will says, almost never use cash, but I don't use credit either. However, analog cash compared to digital is safer, as digital is much easier to manipulate with just a simple keystroke. Thomas Allen says, my wife and I try to use it as much as we can. Assume he means cash. Lorelei says, I've stopped using cash for a few years now. All right, so both ends of the spectrum here. And there's Julie Patchouli, who says, I still use cash at the grocery store. You don't want people to know what you're buying, do you? Well, there's also the issue of maybe you're using one of these membership cards at the grocery store. You know, I'm guilty. I want that 15%. So even if you're using cash and you're using one of these membership cards at your grocery store, they still know what you're buying. You know, so I've taken the position in the past few years that I'm not hiding from anybody. I don't think I can, but I do agree, and I think it's very important that we be smart about this. Let's update this thing and see what we've got here. 71 votes that are in now. I'll make sure. So right now it's moved up to 34% say I almost never use cash. All right, to 27% saying I almost always pay with cash. Let's see if we've got any new comments. I just learned how to look at the newest comments last week, thanks to my producer. Lil Go Z says, as you know, Brad, Lil Go Z is 14, by the way, so always cash. And still, even when I turn 18 in 4 years, things won't be the same. the universal basic income that Days of Noah is talking about on his channel. Easily see that happening. So always cash for me. And I don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. Brothers and sisters, I know what I'm about to say is some survival movie type stuff. He's warning us. Be on alert. But we should start making bunkers and hideouts while we can. Grab every gun we can. Store canned food. Learn how to make fire and stuff. Save pots so we can cook over fire. We need to do this stuff if we're to protect our families. Blessings. Hard times are to come for a long time on this earth, but no time to the God of heaven. Remember that 1,000 years for us? It's just about a day for God. He's only been gone for 2 days. So don't ask why he's taking so long. Read the word of God and trust him. No doubt in your heart. Be right with God and don't let anyone touch you. Don't compromise for anybody. God is a foundation that will never fail. Get it straight and prepare for war. This for Logo Z. All right, so we know that the young people are not completely lost. Logo Z's got the idea down. The one and only says, almost never use cash. I get my paycheck electronically. I pay all my bills electronically, and I buy everything that I need electronically. I do use cash, but super, super rarely. There's Kelly Henson. Kelly says, I watched My Dinner with Andre last night. You see, we use that clip here in our intros sometimes. Good movie. Weird, though. It says, I almost always use cash. Yeah, it is a weird flick, but that one scene is very interesting. Pixie Doodle says, I'm beginning to use cash more often due to the way things are going. Okay, so the link to this poll question is in the live chat. It's pinned to the top of the live chat. If you're on your phone or your laptop, you can find that pretty easily. Join us. Go over there and vote. And we'll be checking in with this poll throughout the day today. Of course, our topic today is going to be about social credit. It's going to be about some new news that's out about the World Economic Forum and the approach to credit scoring. What is the new approach? Of course, it's all about inclusion. We want to make sure that everyone's included in the economy. Is that really what it's about? We'll take a look at that. So let me also give you folks some news that I just caught out on Twitter a few moments ago. Some of you may know Dr. Michael Heiser, one of our strongest theologians, apologists, authors out there. For many years now, he's done a great job of with his books and his teaching. So, some serious news here. Dr. Heiser's been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, specifically adenocarcinoma of the pancreas. They say at this point, one set of CT scans anyway, there is no evidence that it has spread to other organs. But a PT scan or second CT is being scheduled. If the cancer has not spread, the diagnosis is curable via chemotherapy and surgery. If it has spread, it's not curable. And chemotherapy would be the most common treatment to prolong life. Confirmation of which of these is in play, they don't know yet, but by the end of August, they think they'll know for sure. And in the time being, Dr. Heiser will be having common stomach surgery to enable him to eat normally. He's not been able to do that for 2 months, so he's lost a lot of weight. The pancreatic mass has blocked the path of food from the stomach to the small intestine, and Dr. Heiser is currently being fed via IV. This condition must be corrected to regain weight in preparation for chemotherapy. So you can see the problem. He cannot eat. And in order to prepare his body for the onslaught of that is chemotherapy, you have to load calories. And he can't do that at the moment. So we're in a fallen world, folks. They say the stomach surgery is expected to take place the next couple of weeks. Dr. Heiser is not in pain yet, but the stomach failure causes daily discomfort and nausea, so it's not pleasant. In light of this, the most immediate prayer requests are these. If you need to add someone to your list, here is a candidate. Here are the requests they're asking for. Pray for a successful stomach surgery. Pray that the cancer has not spread, which opens the door for treatment, and there's a strong rate of curability if it has not spread. And please, of course, pray for Dr. Heiser's family at this time. My response over here to the right was simply, we are certainly living in a fallen world. But there is eternal comfort in the truth of God's word and in the Christian worldview. Michael Heiser has surely taught us all this over the years of his work. So let's show our gratitude now with a multitude of prayer on behalf of Mike and his family. All right, so put aside our theological differences at this moment. This is a time for praying for our brother and his family. Okay, and I want to remind you folks that here, tomorrow, Summer and myself will be headed out on the road. So the Who is Jesus series will not be airing tomorrow. We'll be on the road. There's a good chance that we'll be able to do a live stream. I'm not going to say definitely because you don't know. They might not like us live streaming from their event. I don't know yet, but we'll definitely do some videoing for sure. And so what we're talking about is tomorrow we're headed down. We're going to be there. This is going on for 3 days. We're going to be there 2 of those days at least. So it's in a small town in rural North Carolina. SaturateNC.com or Saturate Global is the organization that's putting this on. This is Jessie Green and her husband Parker Green. They're going around on a tour, and this is a revival. But there's questionable activities going on here. Just have to. That's the kindest way I can say it. And if you want to support us in this effort, you can. There are ways in the description. You want to support our efforts, our road trip. You can help us with that, because what we want to do is we're going to take the gospel, the pure gospel. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. I have also a link in the description for you guys today. Here is something that we're going to have with us. 10 reasons why I cannot participate in the modern charismatic movement. This is written by George W. Zeller from Middletown Bible Church in Middletown, Connecticut. And this lays it out very well. Some of the 10 most important errors of the charismatic movement. This doesn't even cover the worst of them, but just the most common. You can find this link if you go to the description of this video and scroll down to the links and sources section. It's at the top of that section. And you can open this, and if you have a printer, you can print out a few of these. You can take it, you can save the file and take it over to your Office Depot or Office Max or whatever printer you have in your area, and have 50 or 100 of these printed off for not much. You can hand these out to people. You can go to your local Oneness Pentecostal church and hand these out. A way for us to engage people with love. That's what we want to do. Because the errors are plenty. And let me show you what I mean. You might be thinking to me, well, what do you mean errors? What are you talking about? These people are having revival, man. Why are you trying to crash the revival? No, not at all. I'm not sure a revival is what's happening. Let me just give you an example. This is from Jesse Green's website. Title of this video is What a Revival Looks Like. Here's one night with Saturate Global. So this is a few weeks ago at their revival in Kentucky. So let's see what we can see here. I don't hear any preaching. Now they do preach. There's a glaring absence of the gospel. They preach something they call the gospel, but it's not there. So a charismatic revival here, where you can see this lady in the middle here who is having her, they say this is the Holy Spirit when it overcomes someone. It's common in Pentecostalism for sure. We're not gonna make any claims about what's really happening here. There are some verses that we can look at though to clearly understand what some of the errors here are. Think about, for example, 1 Corinthians. Now, this movement, when they do preach, they like to use 1 Corinthians a lot. So we can use 1 Corinthians as well. All things should be done decently and in order. 1 Corinthians 14, that's verse 40. And if we remember, what's the context of 1 and 2 Corinthians? Apostle Paul is writing to a church that is just, they're new Christians. And in their church, they've brought in their traditions of paganism. They've brought in their old traditions. And so charismania is happening in this. So it's relevant. It's interesting that they would They would appeal to 1st and 2nd Corinthians a lot themselves, but because that was specifically written to a church who was behaving in the way they are, in my opinion. And it does mention here, 1 Corinthians 14, what then, brothers? When you come together, each one has a hymn, a lesson, a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation. Let all things be done for building up. That means edification. So everything that happens in our worship, in our revivals, should be for lifting up, for edification of everyone around. And all things should be done decently and in order. It's also a deliverance ministry. We've talked about that here. So let me just continue this. So what do we see here? Is what we're seeing here edifying? Are all things being done in order? What's the purpose of this? You got a man blowing a shofar over here, and people are very excited to see this woman appearing to have a nervous breakdown. This behavior is very common at these events, and they don't happen to see anything wrong with this. In fact, listen, I'm convinced that these people believe they're doing the right thing. So I'm going there. We're going there out of love for the people who are going to attend it, to make sure that folks they're going to baptize a lot of people. You say, well, isn't that good that they're going to baptize a lot of people? Well, no. Baptizing someone that's not salvation. You can baptize as many people as you like. Where's the discipleship? Where is the understanding? Baptizing someone who you just met, who you don't know, have they been discipled? Did they understand the decision they're making? Or is this about emotion? In other words, they'll also baptize people multiple times, over and over and over. So we're going to attend this tomorrow, and so I just ask that you pray for us, that we would have opportunities to deliver the pure gospel to folks there, so that our time would be well spent, and that we would be received, there, and not kicked out, as it were. So, all right. So, also, if you'd like a free Bible, you can write us at hello@armoroftruth.net. Email us at hello@armoroftruth.net. In the subject line, say, I want a Bible. And don't forget to give us your mailing address. We just shipped out half a dozen or so this week. And we send those out a couple times a month when we build up a few. So if you'd like to give one away or you need one, we'll send you a free Bible and a pack of tracts. We've got some new gospel tracts that you can that we'll send to you, a little starter pack of tracts. You can give those away. Keep them for yourself if they're useful. So email us at hello@armoroftruth.net. And also, you can use that email address to let us know if you have questions, you want to let us know if you like what we're doing or you hate what we're doing. Either way, it's okay. We need it all. If you want to write us a letter and do the same thing, you can write us at Armor of Truth, P.O. Box 729, Hudson, North Carolina, 28638. If you'd like to donate to the ministry, you can do that as well. You can make a check or a money order out to Armor of Truth, and you can mail it to P.O. Box 729, Hudson, North Carolina, 28638. Please join us on our Facebook page. And what's cool about this is, as you can see here in this picture, we now have our flyers. Our postcard/flyers are in now. And anyone who requests a Bible, we'll be sending this out with you with a little personal message that Summer and I write in there for you, just to say hello and thank you for your support and for watching and supporting and praying for the work we're doing here. So check us out on our Facebook page as well, if you're out there on Facebook. And of course, this week we released a new video on Patreon. It's going to be there for the patrons first. 10 days, the patrons watch it before it's released to the public. All these links are in the description. And the new release this week is this, Tracking Dystopia. Can't put Tracking Dystopia on YouTube. That's the thing we've learned. So it has to go other places. And this is one way we can show it. So the real reason that Johannesburg is burning. So our contact in South Africa is back with us again for the second time, because South Africa is in the news a lot lately. And a lot of things are being said about it. Let me just show you a clip. Can I do this? Can I get away with it? I'll show you a clip from this video.
Remember that.
Let me show you the clip here from this thing. Something that's interesting about the truth movement and things that are going on that we need to be careful about. Of course, we did a video regarding Max Egan recently and his, well, let me just be honest, his ignorance about the truth claims of Christianity and who is Jesus Christ. And so let me find that. I'll find that little section.
Pretty much need to bow down to the beast.
All right. I think it's right here.
People have to realize that COVID didn't put us into a lockdown. It was corrupt politics.
It's tough to find it here. This video is, let's make it full screen.
Our president, I think the second.
So then, once again, this is Takano from South Africa who's given us a
petition to the beast, vaccinate.
From on the ground
Be smashed
in South
and
Africa.
they'll be
This
like,
is something that the
"What's going
news
on?"
doesn't give you. What we're talking about here, I don't know if I can find it on here for
Being
you.
here in South Africa.
What's going on here is Max Egan was showing some videos on his channel. And Takano is going to explain to you how these videos they're not real. You know, some of showing videos of the people shooting at each other on the ground. Wow, if I could find it, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Anyway, it's I'm working off the cuff here. Yeah, so I probably can't find it for you. But I encourage you to check it out. There it is. There it is. I knew we would get it. So here we go. Some of these videos going around out there are fake, my friends. So we're going to have buffering problems, looks like. Let's see here.
Closer and closer. I'm like, whoa. I saw a video that you sent me on Max Egan and some of the videos, and I'm just like, whoa, 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 whoa. I know that video.
That one right there. And there you go. The person with the camera just filming it there nonchalantly as if nothing's going on.
And that one video has actually been used about 3 or 4 times over the past year as propaganda. And
Oh, there you go. So there is Tracking Dystopia, the third episode. We're talking to our contact in South Africa for the second time. You know, we want to know what's really happening in the news. What is the news telling you? What are your truther sources telling you? And here's what I wanted to say about our website. Bear with us. Bear with us for a bit here as we're making some changes to the website, things that we know you're going to appreciate and like. All right, so bear with us on that, and we'll get back in touch with you and let you know when things are up. But be sure to tune in Friday evening for myself and Days of Noah on the website. We'll let you know for sure. Beforehand, I'll put a teaser video up here on YouTube. You'll know when and where. I'll give you a link. Now, for today's video, I want to encourage you all to check out Armor of Truth Live number 132, The Greater Reset. That thumbnail says The Greater Reset, where we talk about Lucien Tarnowski, one of the shining stars of the globalist movement, the Sustainable Development Goals movement. The title of the video is Monetizing the Earth, Laboratory Life, and the Greater Reset. Check that out, my friends. That is one of the more informative dives into the Sustainable Development Agenda 21 that we've done here in a while. And you can see what the mindset is. So the video today will go right along with this video. They'll work as bookends for one another. All right, so we get started today. We're going to talk about the idea of your behavior. Your behavior being considered not just your behavior as to whether you pay your bills or not, but your opinions and your beliefs being considered in your, for your credit. Globalists are they're leveraging social media, your location, and behavioral data for alternative credit scoring. Now, this is one of the uses for the character that is Donald Trump. It seems like, anyway. They're using him as a lightning rod. Anyone they can attach to him being unfit to participate in society, for example. So alternative credit scoring is about leveraging big data to analyze not just financial histories, but social behaviors as well. And this, of course, there's the risk of introducing a social credit system like that of the Chinese Communist Party, which is already set up, of course, in China. So this article comes from January of this year, before the World Economic Forum's meeting, the virtual meeting they had. They didn't meet in person this year, but they still got their business done. This is where the Davos globalists have added alternative credit scoring to their agenda. That means it's going to happen. Very likely going to happen. So traditional credit scoring relies on limited sources for insights into an individual's financial behavior. Do you pay your bills? Are you reliable? Can people extend credit to you because you're likely to pay them back? Well, alternative credit scoring adds an individual's social behavior. Cars outside. Social behavior to the overall score. Data from online social networks, mobile phone records. Yeah, your phone records. Who are you talking to? Who are you texting with? Who are you talking to? Mobile phone records. Psychometrics. These are some of the parameters that are currently being used to evaluate the potential of borrowers. So the data is compiled and is then used to build a person's digital profile. Now, this is this is also connected to vaccine passports. Of course, it's not just going to be about. It's not just going to have medical information. Of course, these once power is attained, it's not given back. So your social media activities, your online interactions, geolocation data, where do you live, your browsing history, and of course your phone records, all will go into your social credit score, your credit score. Not just, it's not just going to determine whether or not you can get a loan or get the power turned on at your new place. It's going to determine whether you can go certain places, whether you can attend certain events, whether you can eat at certain restaurants, perhaps. Data from online social networks, mobile phone records, and psychometrics. Psychometrics are scores based on personality and behavior. These are the parameters that are currently being used to evaluate the potential of borrowers. Now, this is highlighting efforts in Indonesia, which seem to adopt alternative credit scoring as a way to, quote, accelerate financial inclusion. There's that word. There's that buzzword of the new age. Inclusion. The Davos globalists came up with a three-step plan that may serve as a model for other emerging economies. You can check this out, the Davos agenda. Got the website here, worldeconomicforum.org. It's there. You can read some of this for yourself. Of course, they'll say that the current crisis that's been with us for the past year and a half has demonstrated that no institution or individual alone can address the economic, environmental, social, and technological challenges of our complex, interdependent world. The crisis has accelerated systemic, let me give you full screen here, has accelerated systemic changes that were apparent before its inception. The fault lines that emerged in 2020 now appear as critical crossroads in 2021. The time to rebuild trust and to make crucial choices is fast approaching as the need to reset priorities and the urgency to reform systems grows stronger around the world. The Davos Agenda is a pioneering mobilization of global leaders to shape the principles, policies, and partnerships. Wow, alliteration at its best. Needed in this challenge. It's essential for leaders from all walks of life to work together virtually for a more inclusive, cohesive, and sustainable future as soon as possible in 2021. We got to push this through now. Now, people might say, well, what are you barking about here, man? They're just trying to make sure that that there's an equal playing field for everyone in the world economy. Yeah. Really? Are you sure about that? You sure that's all it is? You need to read the Sustainable Development Goals at the United Nations website. You do some more research into what sustainability is from their perspective. For us, something sustainable is something that makes sense, something that we can use over and over. We're not taking advantage. We're reusing things that we can reuse. We're making sure that our water stays clean. That's sensible, right? But this is not what sustainability means to them. They tell you it's about saving the earth, saving humanity. It's the opposite, my friends. So anyway, there's some highlights from the Davos agenda on the World Economic Forum's website. So social behavior can become the primary data source when financial histories are either unavailable or incomplete. So let's just say they can't get a hold of your spending habits or whether or not you are solvent, whether you got all your bills paid, how in debt you are. Well, they'll just, they're going to have social behavior as a metric. Could be the only metric. I think probably in the future that will be the only metric, because if everyone has the same universal basic income, then of course it would make sense that there need to be other measures before people can be extended access, right? The word here is access. It's not just about credit, financial credit. It's about access to society. Social media accounts represent a treasure trove of data for lenders to pick apart. Your credit score can be augmented by simply looking at how positive your comments are. Do you agree with the World Economic Forum? Do you agree with the United Nations? Can it be shown on Facebook and Twitter that you're in agreement with the party? How often you like posts from high or low risk accounts, how quickly you respond to direct messages, and even how long you spend mindlessly scrolling are ways to measure your behavior. How often do you text your friends back? Did you call your mom on her birthday? Did you like posts about strip clubs or stockbrokers? It all adds up to a nice little score at the top of a brightly colored readout. Your credit score enhanced. I think we have a view of one of those. Yeah, here it is. There's the brightly colored. Yeah, there we go. I can make this a little larger for you. There's what it looks like. Alternative credit scoring adds a social credit layer to borrowing. So, advocates praise alternative credit scoring as being more inclusive. Others fear that it could be an entryway to a Chinese Communist Party-style social crediting system where access to goods and services is based on a person's social behavior. Obviously, that's where it's headed, right? Now, let's just be straightforward about all this. The Chinese system is not going to be the American system immediately. But what we see going on in China, it's reasonable to assume that at some point in the future, maybe on down the road a bit, that's the system they want, because that's the system that exacts the most control over the citizens. And for someone in power, that's the point. Let's say someone with an evil heart who's in power. And that's everybody. That's all of us. In a Forbes article from 2019, City University of New York law professor Nizan Jezelevich-Pakin, that's a big name, warned about the increasing risks that come with the merger of financial and social data. These risks include social segregation, right at the top. And you see the title of our video today, Segregation on the Internet. We're not even to that point yet. Yeah, the internet will be segregated as well. What internet will you be able to log into even based on your behavior? Decreased social mobility, right? Access, the term, the word, the idea, the concept we want to keep in mind here is access. Limiting your access if you don't agree with the official narrative of things. Are you a 9/11 truther? You know, do you, architects and engineers for 9/11, do you believe what they say? Do you follow their movement? Well, that might just hurt you. That might just hurt your social credit score, your ability to get a loan, or your ability to go downtown and get a hamburger. Do you watch Brad from Carolina YouTube channel? That might hurt you. Potential lending discrimination also is a potential risk. And a ranking culture. A Yelp-style ranking culture specifically is what they're saying here. But this already exists under the Chinese Communist Party system, but the consequences are far worse for citizens with bad reviews. Over 30 million people in China are banned from leaving the country. You see what we're talking about here? It's not just, can you get a hamburger? Can you get into the golf club? Can you get a loan at the bank? It's things like, can you travel? Can you get on a bus? Can you buy a car? Can you even get a driver's license? Traveling by train or plane, having insurance even. Maybe that's how it starts, right? Social credit is bad. Maybe you're a Trump supporter and the current administration or movement in the world has decided that you're not allowed to purchase insurance, automobile insurance. Therefore, you can't drive on the road. How about renting a home, going to restaurants? How about taking out a loan? All because of your credit score. These things could be limited. As a Chinese propaganda would state in a video that they had up here, if trust is broken in one place, restrictions are placed everywhere. Here it is down here. I wonder if we got that video here. There it is. I wonder how dangerous this will be. Let's see what happens.
Till February 2019, over 30 million people are named in a list of dishonest persons subject to enforcement by this court. They cannot go traveling by planes. They cannot go traveling by high-speed trains. They cannot go to luxury restaurants, and they can't get a golf courses. They are unable to get an insurance, and they can't even rent a house. If trust is broken in one place, restrictions are imposed everywhere.
All right, that's all I'm going to play about that. So you can see from this article. Once again, folks, these articles, everything I'm bringing to you today is linked in the description under the links and sources section of the in the description of this video. So this gives us an idea of what we're dealing with here to start with. Consolidating social behavior data into your new digital identity. So currently, alternative credit scoring is accepted by industry stakeholders. Now that's why I wanted to mention to you the other video that I pointed out a moment ago, the greater reset. Did I lose it? There it is. No, this video here. This video is crucial because you're going to get some definitions that you'll need for this video today, such as stakeholder. What's the difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder? Why are we calling these people stakeholders today? There's a difference. Shareholder is interested in the financial outcome of a country, or the health of a country, of a company, maybe a country. But a stakeholder, did I say that right? I may say that again. A shareholder is invested in the financial health of a company. A stakeholder has a much wider interest in a company. They're interested in the social impact, for example. So if you want a detailed distinction between the two, shareholder being the old term, stakeholder being the new globalist term, check that video out. It's right at the beginning. This video has been time-stamped, so you can jump to the section that you want to hear. So currently, the alternative credit scoring is accepted by industry stakeholders as being complementary to traditional financial credit scoring and not replacing it. But of course, I guess the two need to work together until you have a universal basic income, until you have pure socialism where everyone, it seems anyway, has the same amount of stuff. Because when everyone has the same amount of stuff, there's no need to lend to anyone. No one's going to own anything, so you're not going to go in debt for a house or a car. So it will have to come down to your behavior, your social credit score, rather than your actual financial credit. According to the Davos agenda, alternative credit scoring, ACS, will not replace traditional financial-based credit scoring. And of course, we believe them, don't we? The dream is for both to live side by side and help strengthen the confidence of our lending partners. Now, what's the catch there? Once again, if everyone has the same amount of stuff, they're not going to be looking at that metric anyway. It's going to all come down to your social credit. They say that this would enable a world of cheaper, faster, more targeted, and sustainable lending. Understand what the term sustainable means when it's used in these contexts, in the globalist perspective. Sustainable only means, let's be cheeky here with it. Sustainable from their perspective means sustaining their position of power, right? It means sustaining a certain level, keeping you at a certain level and not higher, right? Because it's not about equality, it's about equity. And the problem with that is, for countries who are experiencing affluence, like the countries in the West, the United States and Canada, UK, others, of course. But the idea there being, they're not trying to bring other, quote-unquote, developing countries up to the level of the rest of the world. The idea is to bring all these developed countries down to a certain level. That's what they mean by equality. The vast amounts of data on social behavior readily available, the sheer number of avenues to mine that data from the alternative data begins to dwarf that of traditional financial credit data. Of course, the point here is your financial data is just a small part, right? What you say online, where you go, the things you like, the words you use, much more, a much richer base of data. Traditionally, credit bureaus have been relied on as the sole source of consumer credit information. Not anymore. The Davos Agenda blog states that in order to make sense of consumer behavior, all the data must be consolidated. Your privacy is a thing of the past. And that's something we need to get used to. If you're going to interact in society anyway, and myself, as a Christian, as a person who has been called into ministry, it's my decision, personally anyway, to engage the society. I have to run into the fire. I want to run into the fire because we're on a rescue mission here. We're not here to rescue sick people. Our rescue mission is in a graveyard. We want to save dead people. Consumption-related data is everywhere. Unfortunately, it's not uniform, disorganized, and scattered. In the initial phase, the consolidation process, the finding, identifying, and capturing of data must be conducted, and it's happening right now. It's going on. Taking it a further step, once the data is consolidated and analyzed, a digital profile of the individual can then be developed. The digital profile can then be added to an all-encompassing digital identity, which is a major component of the global elite's Great Reset agenda. According to the World Economic Forum report from 2018, they say this, quote, "Our identity is literally who we are. And as the digital technologies of the fourth industrial revolution advance, our identity is increasingly digital. This digital identity determines what products, services, and information we can access. Or conversely, what products, services, information we cannot access. The World Economic Forum's digital identity, the graphic here, let's get you that graphic up here. It's this one right here. This graphic right here. There we go. Give you an idea. So this graphic shows that financial services make up just one fraction of a whole host of social activities, records, and credentials that will go into a person's digital identity. So let's see here. What is a digital identity all about? As far as healthcare, anyway, here, for users to access insurance, treatment, to monitor health devices, wearables, for care providers to demonstrate their qualifications. So the digital identity will determine your access to insurance, your access to treatment. You might say, well, Brad, what's the problem? This is reasonable. I don't think so. I don't think it's reasonable. Who's in charge? Right? Digital governance. In days of Noah and myself, we were talking about this Saturday on his channel. Digital governance is coming at us full steam. And digital governance means this. It's not anything that you voted for. It's not anything the elected officials are even voting on. Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century, is a non-binding agreement. That means that it's not voted on. It doesn't go through legislation. It's implemented locally by non-governmental organizations. In other words, they convince you that it's best for you. You don't vote on it. You might go down to your town hall to complain, but they'll use the Delphi technique to corral you, make you think you're being heard. Of course, smart cities are a part of the digital identity. Smart cities help to monitor devices and sensors transmitting data such as energy usage, air quality, traffic congestion. That's how, if you're one who is putting too much carbon into the air. E-government is part of the digital identity. We just call that governance. For citizens to access and use services, so your digital identity allows you to access and use services, file taxes, allows you to vote, allows you to collect benefits. So in the future, you won't have a salary, you'll have your benefits, your universal basic income, of course, to be able to shop, to conduct business, transactions, and secure payments. What about humanitarian response? It says the digital identity plays a role in accessing services to demonstrate the qualifications to be able to even work in a country. The digital identity will give you access or limit you in your travel and mobility. Can you book trips? Can you cross the border? Of course, food and sustainability here for farmers and consumers to verify provenance of produce to enhance. See, now that sounds good, doesn't it? Oh, we know where our food's going to be coming from. That's a good thing, isn't it? No. Why not? Because, well, let's say you prefer a farmer who doesn't use genetically modified seeds and doesn't use genetically modified animals. Well, he's not going to be able to sell his products on the market. These products won't be allowed into the sustainable model, of course. Because after all, remember the story we covered? We need to engineer smaller humans. So a certain type of food is what you will have access to because you need to be smaller. You're taking up too much space. You're breathing out too much carbon. So if we all remember here, World Economic Forum, of course, your digital identity can be used against you. Welcome to 2030. I own nothing. I have no privacy, and life has never been better. Sincerely, the World Economic Forum. Of course, your digital identity can be used against you in the event of a great reset. Another article that comes up later. Of course, this, folks, is linked in the description for you if you want to go in deeper on that and check it out for yourself. Start yourself a YouTube channel. and just go on and show people what's going on in the news with this stuff. We have to talk about it. I mean, you might have to, hey, start a YouTube channel. I'll be happy to bring you over and we can talk on the armoroftruth.net freely. So we got a timeline of the Great Reset agenda from foundation to event 201 in the pandemic of 2020. Interesting article here for sure. If you want to check this out, once again, links are in the description for you. How the Great Reset ideology pitched its tent in the new normal camp. Here's the perspective. So once again, over here, I'll have to save commenting on this for the website. We probably have gone about as far as we can on this particular prong of the research here on YouTube anyway. So there's a new approach to credit scoring is what we're talking about. And it's accelerating financial inclusion, there's that word, inclusion, in emerging economies. What's this mean? What are we actually talking about here? We're talking about an alternative form of credit scoring that is being used successfully already in a term they use, emerging markets. As data on consumer consumption is rich because e-commerce is widespread. So as we do more and more of our buying online, as we use less and less cash, it's very easy to know who we are. Where do we spend our money? And with that, let's go take a look at our poll question once again here and see what we've got. Oh, we're up to 91 votes. We've got a fairly popular poll. If you'd like to vote in this poll, just go to the community tab on this YouTube channel. The poll is right at the top there. Or it is linked in the live chat. It's pinned to the top of the live chat if you want to vote in this poll. How often do you use cash when paying for things? So results are coming in. We're getting close to 100 now. It's nice when we get to 100 because we have a nice round number for our percentages. We know exactly how many people we're dealing with. 31% of you say I almost never use cash. 27% of you say I almost always pay with cash. Interesting, huh? So we've got, once again, 56%. 56% of you. Man, I'm bad at math, aren't I? 56% of you saying that you almost never, you use cash less than 1/3 of the transactions. 56% of you. But so we've got 43% of you here who say you're using cash in more than 2/3 of your transactions, with 27% of you saying that you almost always pay with cash. So at the extreme ends here, never using cash, 30%, almost always pay with cash, 30%. Well, you're going to see these percentages change over the next several years. It's not prophecy. It's just look at what's happening. How can you participate otherwise? So the only answer here, I guess, it would be other economies, other markets have to crop up. We have to learn how to deal with each other in other ways outside and around this digital system. And of course, that'll be the point of the social credit system. Are you one who's dealing in cash or barter with other people? Are you circumventing the digital currency system? And if you are, well, your access is going to be severely limited. I'm just pontificating, but it seems reasonable now, doesn't it? See our comments that we've got here. Mr. Moonlit says, I always used cash for a while, but lately it's become too difficult. We'll go Z is back with us again. Says, I don't know if this is relevant, but I want to add something. One day, a week or two ago, I felt a feeling in my spirit as if something is coming really soon. Lord have mercy. We're really in the end times. I think so. A lot of people say that now. A lot of people are saying what really feels like something big is coming around the corner. Susie Q says, I was still writing checks at the store long after credit cards came out. My kids would laugh at me, and the clerk and other shoppers would leer at me. Yeah, my mother does the same thing still. She writes that check, and if they don't like it, she doesn't care. And there's not many like that anymore. It's still electronic, though, isn't it? It's not much different than using your card. But, you hold on to, I support it, hold on to as much freedom as you can. So 91 votes are in on our poll so far, jump up to 96. So now we've got a nice round number of 30% almost never use cash. Check and see if anybody got any new comments here so we can get everybody's comment. All right, we're caught up on the comments. Go vote in the poll. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think about this and what's going on. What's on your mind, and we'll check back with you in just a bit. So this is also a new scoring. This alternative credit scoring works with artificial intelligence. Of course, we'll hear that term. And social media instead of paper-based scoring methods that depend on consumers having a bank account. Now, here's the thing about the artificial intelligence. It's billed to you as though it is intelligent, that it doesn't need any human beings making decisions. It just decides on its own. That's not possible. That doesn't exist. The best we have is machine learning, where people, human beings, are still in control. The algorithm that the machine learning works on is input by a human being. So listen, folks, the people in power are not going to create something that they can't control. They're not going to let something that they can't ultimately control run wild. Not going to happen. The concept of credit scoring first arose in the United States and was initially deemed to be successful to the degree it was used as a primary or even sole mechanism for identifying one's financial fitness. However, there are differences between the U.S. and maturing markets, like, for example, Indonesia. U.S. credit scoring focuses primarily on banking and financial data for how long, and mainly consists of credit cards, loans, and banking usage data and alarms. To date, there are not many non-banking entities participating in this problem space in a unified way. But in areas like Indonesia, the market tends to favor one-stop shop locations to fulfill their purchasing needs. People use e-commerce to top up their phone credit, to pay bills, to book domestic and international travel, to commute, to pay loans. They also use it to make investments, such as in gold and mutual funds. This means that the data on consumer consumption is a wealth. It is rich. It is relevant, and it is immense. These data points are able to determine consumers' financial and consumption fitness. Where do you go? What do you think? Do you support the leader? The concept is known as alternative credit scoring. It is a system that uses technology as the basis for its operations. This article here says that it is an upgrade from conventional credit scoring mechanisms that use assorted paperwork and manual credit history. Alternative credit scoring uses advanced technology, automation, artificial intelligence, and machine learning instead. The system also employs a set of alternative data in projecting potential borrowers. So more of the same here. This article from the World Economic Forum is linked in the description here. Some of the points here, they say, the World Economic Forum is telling you anyway. Here are several ways we can further accelerate financial inclusion in Indonesia. All right, so the idea being here, let's help these people become part of the world economy, right? Let's bring them up to our level, according to the World Economic Forum. It says here, this will serve as a model for other emerging economies, for all economies, let's be honest. Number one, let's show you here. There it is. Let me get rid of those ads. There we go. That looks a little cleaner now, doesn't it? Create an accurate model specifically for the market. Well, it jumped around on me there. There we go. Every country has their own culture. It builds the foundation of how we think, how we spend, how we invest, how we treat our wealth, and how we manage our credit. Copy-pasting models directly from matured countries like the United States or China will not work. We need smart statisticians and data leaders with experience dealing with a mature credit scoring ecosystem to apply their knowledge and build unique adaptive models for Indonesia. So Indonesia here as we see, a model for the world. Consolidate alternative data sets. Consumption-related data is everywhere. Like, in other words, how do you spend your money? Where do you go? What do you do? Unfortunately, it's not uniform. It's disorganized and scattered. In the initial phase of this process, this great reset, the consolidation process, it is the finding and identifying and capturing of data. And they say, once again, this must be conducted. And then we use basic data cleaning, correlating, and storing technology concepts to build the unified big data concept. Only then do we have a basis for leveraging advanced technology, artificial intelligence, for example, and can start correlating, experimenting, and building models. The heart and soul of technocracy, my friends, are these models. Number 3, implement adaptive learning. U.S. credit scoring focuses mostly on banking, which is an almost static ecosystem. It does not require regular changes to the mechanism. Our ecosystem, the World Economic Forum, poses different, exciting spaces. We focus primarily on the user's consumption behavior, a constantly changing factor, and a very controllable factor as well. Our model needs to be adaptive to account for such regular changes. While alternative credit scoring is promising in regards to the substantial opportunity and potential impact it brings in improving financial inclusion, it requires strong collaboration and partnership from everyone, whether you want to or not, in the ecosystem. To mature this system, ample time to bake and experiment is also needed. Once again, they make the claim here that alternative credit scoring will not replace traditional financial-based credit scoring. The dream is for them to be merged together. Is that really the goal? I don't think so. As we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs of Agenda 21 at the United Nations website, you can tell that this movement is not about inclusion. It is about inclusion. It's about including everyone under the umbrella of this global technocracy. There's Davos agenda. Once again, you can check out these links in the description if you want to go a little deeper here, see what's happening. So as we move on out of that particular issue, we want to talk a little bit about cashless now. Now, to remind you once again, the video we did the other day, you want to check out the Greater Reset, all right? And after that one, you might want to check out Armor of Truth Live 133, this new Trump cult, which is a mystical shakedown. In other words, the idea that there is a competing cashless model out there, that the idea that there is a dark New World Order and a good New World Order. Right? There's a cashless system that's good for you, is the claim anyway. Is that true? Or is it all headed the same way? So you want to check out that video as well. These videos will work together to help you understand what's happening. And here we go. India Stack, the future of fintech, cashless society, and total inclusion. There's that word again. The United Nations already declared fintech as the chosen financial system for sustainable development, aka technocracy. Now, what are we talking about here once again? Let's just take a breath. Let's take a breath and recognize that we're deplorable. Why is this important? Well, we're not called to be constantly looking for the Antichrist, to be constantly trying to identify the beast system. It's pretty clear about where we are now, where we're headed. So why it's relevant for Christians, or anyone really, to be aware of what's going on here is because it's going to directly affect you and your family, and it's going to do it soon. So we have to understand and be able to identify this movement wherever it occurs, because it's being implemented at the local level. While we're busy watching the circus over here in the mainstream media, What's Trump up to? Is he still the president? Is he signing laws over in Switzerland or whatever? Right in your own backyard, down at your town hall, Agenda 21 being implemented right under your nose. That's the point. So we need to be able to identify these things, understand what technocracy is. It is government. It's governance by experts, not by people you elected, but by people who are put in place to affect a certain outcome, which is globalism, the loss of individual rights, communitarianism, the loss of individual rights, where the community has the rights. They won't come take your guns away. You'll just give them up in order to be a part of their smart city. It's, of course, all digital and includes creative blockchain technology for management and control of everything. It also demands 100% inclusion of all citizens in the system. So when we see the word inclusion, let's go back over here and look at these articles. When we see this word inclusion, that's a feel-good word, it's supposed to be. A feel-good word for, we want to make sure, that the folks in Indonesia are included so they can be included in our prosperity. No. Got to make sure that everyone on the planet is included in this globalist techno cult. A digital infrastructure known as the India Stack is revolutionizing access to finance. A decade ago, India's vibrant local markets were filled with people buying and selling goods with well-worn banknotes. So, of course, as Indonesia needs to be included in the globalist technocracy, of course, India. Billions of people living there, so, of course. Today, they're just as likely to use smartphones. Advances in digital finance mean that millions of people in the formal and vast informal economy can accept payments, settle invoices, and transfer funds anywhere in the country with just a few screen taps. COVID-19 has accelerated the use of contactless digital payments. Do we think that is by accident? Is that organic? Did that just happen? Interesting that there was a perfect context for contactless digital payments. Anyway, as people try to protect themselves, the advances build on something called the India Stack, which is a comprehensive digital identity, payment, and data management system. We're talking about here. The India Stack is widening access and inclusion, of course, to financial services in an economy where retail transactions are heavily cash-based. Got to get rid of that cash. Oh, it's so inconvenient to use cash, isn't it? Right? Well, yeah, it's becoming inconvenient, as we saw in the comments under our poll question. It's becoming inconvenient. Now, once again, let's make it clear here. This is a Christian broadcast. All right, this is a Christian-based message always. So let's be clear about this. Technology is not evil. We're not trying to say that it's the technology. I'm using this technology to speak to you right now. It's the heart of man that's evil and wicked, cannot be trusted. And of course, power attracts the worst people. That's why we need to be vigilant here. Not because we need to get rid of the technology, but because we need to keep an eye on the crooks. A digital ID card can dramatically lower the cost of confirming people's identities. Lower the cost. I guess that's the important part. That's the way it's built. Open access software standards facilitate digital payments between banks, fintech firms, and digital wallets. And access to people's personal data is controlled through consent. The expansion of digital payments facilitated by the stack. The stack, it's called. This is an important driver of economic development in India and has helped stabilize incomes in rural areas and boost sales for firms in the informal sector. Now, isn't that a good thing? It has stabilized incomes in rural areas. What do they mean by stabilize? That also means to limit. lower the ceiling. It can mean that too. So there are 4 layers. I think it's 4 layers here, if I remember what I'm reading. 4 layers to this thing. First of all, first layer is, of course, as we've been talking about, digital identification. First step in the creation of the stack began back in 2010 with the launch of a biometric digital ID system dubbed Aadhaar. I'll show you. It's right here. It's this word. Aadhaar, perhaps. It's Hindi for foundation. The government initiated a campaign encouraging people to have their photograph, fingerprints, and other biometric details taken at enrollment centers across the country. Now, of course, our brother Days of Noah is on the topic of biometrics big time right now. So I have to stop here and make sure you understand if you want to know more about biometrics, where it's headed, where it's come from, what's the philosophy behind it. Days of Noah channel is where you want to get that information, especially in his Patreon videos, the videos that can't be here on YouTube. Check out Days of Noah on Patreon as well. Support the work, because this is how we get to talk about these things today. We have to create communities to do it. It's not going to be allowed to be out here just freely shared. Not for much longer anyway. So they go around to these centers and get their biometric data collected. Each person received a unique 12-digit identification number. Now, this is a lot like the Social Security number here in the United States. It's just been here a lot longer. And that number gives people access to a range of services. So 1.2 billion people in India, almost 90% of their population, signed up for this digital identification in less than 10 years. About half of them linking their new ID to their bank account. Legal limits on the mandatory use of digital IDs help protect people's right to privacy. And we can trust that, can't we? Prior to Aadhaar, I'm not sure, hopefully maybe someone in the chat who knows how to speak Hindi can help us. Prior to this system, patchy record keeping meant that nearly half the population lacked a nationally accepted ID card. Driver's licenses, voter ID cards, and the like could provide authentication for a patchwork of services. However, the complexity of verifying identity made it costly to deliver banking and other services. After all, who would lend money to someone whose identity was unknown? Well, it's the global economy where you're lending money and doing business with people you don't know all the time. Right? That's a big change from the way things used to be, where you got to know the people you did business with. It's not possible anymore. So you can see here a graph of the rapid enrollment in India. 90% of their population, according to this report anyway, got their digital ID. Between 2011 and 2019. Secondly, the second layer of this process is interoperable payments. Even as the government was widening access to bank accounts, India's fast-growing fintech firms were launching digital wallets and mobile money. So one of the things about this, folks, Days of Noah, we talked about this Saturday. There's a movement out there, an anarchist movement, and it's closely related to the libertarian movement. And I used to think myself part of that movement. I used to think this is the way to go. Obviously, the governments are so evil and so corrupt that we need a new system, or we need to just blow the system up and just deal with one another. I've come to understand that, through a proper scriptural understanding and theology, that man's heart is wicked. You cannot trust man, a structure. Leaders are not only necessary, leaders are inevitable. Anytime you have a group of people come together, a leader emerges. It's just how we are. So the idea that there should be no leaders is a pipe dream. In my opinion, it's even a silly idea, because all you're going to do is have more of the same. There's going to be a leader. Now, you might say, but we're getting rid of the corrupt ones. Look, there are no good people. No good people on the planet. Everyone has fallen. All have turned aside. No one seeks after God, which means no one is seeking after the overall well-being of everyone else. And so anarchy is no answer. But of course, one of the questions in the chat the other day was, if the government is satanic, then the proper response is anarchy, right? Well, no. Satanism and anarchy go hand in hand. Lawlessness, being without rulers, without leaders. Remember, it's not government that's evil, like the technology. It's not government that's evil. It's men and their hearts. It says here, these innovations made it cheap and simple to store and transfer money digitally, even for those without a bank account. This prompted an innovation by authorities. They introduced a new layer to the retail payment system known as the Unified Payments Interface, so that banks could exchange messages and payment orders with non-bank firms. This formed the second layer of India stack. All right, now, next comes the third and fourth layers of the India stack. Once again, why are we looking at this? Because this is where they're trying out the global system, the system that's intended for the world, in my humble but biased opinion. Layers 3 and 4, trust through consent. And of course now, we come back to the social credit aspect. Data is emerging as a key part of the digital economy. Access to and control over data increasingly determines an economy's growth, equity, and stability. A third, paperless layer of the stack allows for verification of digital documents that can replace traditional paper equivalents, increasing efficiency and integrity. More important, the fourth and final layer of the India stack, which is not fully yet operational, is formed of aggregators that intermediate the flow of financial data between individuals and financial firms. So these go-betweens, these fiduciaries in the jargon, are responsible for managing personal data, right? These are the people who are, I guess we'd call them in the old days, they were bonded. They were supposed to be trusted with people's personal information. Regulations state that they must obtain people's consent before they process personal data. Fiduciaries may not access or store any data that has been shared, but they can charge for their services. This is a very different approach from those in many countries. Elsewhere, these aggregators, these go-betweens, typically offer services in exchange for access to the data, so they can sell it, of course, because that's the new commodity in this globalist techno cult. Right? That's the new commodity, and that's one of the main points of this whole thing is your data is gold nowadays. Approaches like this, such as the India stack, can support not just open banking, but open finance as well, with synergies across banking, wealth management, insurance, and other products across the world. So this from Technocracy News. So links, once again, folks, in the description for you. This is from technocracy.news, of course. All right. Now, that's dealing with our social credit and our cashless topics. Now, what about the internet? What about that title of this video, Brad? Yeah, the internet. Social credit is going to affect your access to all kinds of things. One of those being the internet. Which internet will you be able to access? So as the world rolls into this new technocratic authoritarianism, it will flavor all aspects of the internet. In China, IP-level censorship is now standard practice. That means censorship at the layer of your home, where the internet comes in, your modem, for example, or your router, your modem/router. IP levels, they can censor people right down even to the level of the thing that's on your home network, like your phone or your computer. So someone inside the house will have access to things while another person in the house might not. IP level censorship, getting right down to the individual. It's become standard practice in China, driving users to self-censor activities so as to not get banned altogether. It's not just happening in China, it's happening right here on YouTube with me right now as I self-edit, self-censor myself, and don't say certain things that are going to get me a copyright strike or are going to get me a community guidelines strike. Yeah. So over here, we're in their realm, so we play by their rules. Sometimes you hear people say, well, you're still on YouTube. You must be a shill. I think you can be on YouTube and be smart. I don't think you have to go out and go for the jugular every day on YouTube. That's what the website's for, armoroftruth.net. But now, of course, the West, meaning United States, Canada, even the UK, European countries, is increasingly adopting the same model, the same Chinese model. A 2018 article titled The Cyber Balkanization and the Future of the Internets. Now, balkanization, this term here, just means segregation. Things are separated into blocks. So Patrick Wood at technocracy.news, he's writing here. He says, be honest. Did you read Unheard's cookie policy, the website, before you clicked on accept and close? Did you read that end user agreement on your app or whatever you're using out there? Have you ever read one of those notices? Or do you, like me, agree to anything and everything so long as you don't get to the good stuff more quickly? The reason these annoying little pop-ups exist at all is thanks to a recent-ish law which helps you understand what's being collected about you online. It's something that probably deserves a moment of your attention. But we're spending more and more time online. Who wants to waste it checking 20 tedious terms and conditions a day? The future of internet will come down to tiny things like this. Subtle decisions made at the engineering or regulatory level, stuff which most of us ignore because we can't be bothered to go find out what it's all about. Are you curious about digital object architecture? Do you want to know who's behind the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers? A colleague of mine once spent weeks tracking this stuff, only to conclude that internet protocols are, quote, simply too impenetrable and boring to even get angry about, unquote. Nobody cares. Nobody except the autocrats, the technocrats of the world, who are quietly trying to wrestle control over various working groups and technical decisions to make sure they can tame the digital beast for their benefit, of course. Given our total dependency on it, it's scary to think of the internet as a flimsy experiment anymore. But it's already changed shape several times over its short life, from a government-funded research project for military scientists to an academic network to a vehicle for e-commerce and now a platform for social content. Through it all, one thing remained constant, in theory if not always in practice. The idea that the internet was a single open network which anyone could join and where everything was connected via a standard set of protocols and rules. That was what we always thought it was, this internet. According to a new book, that's all about to change. This book is called 4 Internets. Let's get you a look at this. Four Internets. Here we go. From the University of Southampton. 4 Internets. Data, geopolitics, and the governance of cyberspace. This book argues that the era of a single internet might be drawing to a close, replaced by a balkanized, segregated, network of different versions living alongside each other. Scholars Wendy Hall and Kieran O'Hara reckon 4 internets in particular are already taking shape. The Silicon Valley model is open and libertarian. Anyone can join the network. No single authority is in charge, and there are few rules about what sort of information can be transported across the network. Its MO, its modus operandi, is to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. This is the original vision and remains just about still on top. Now, the Washington, D.C. version of the internet, by contrast, prioritizes data collection and corporate interests. It doesn't mind big tech firms collecting massive amounts of information on citizens, providing it generates profits and excellent products for consumers to enjoy. And then there's the Brussels bourgeois model, which is, quote, ordered, respectful, polite, decent, well-behaved, well-mannered, and considerate, and also a little dull. Preferred by most European Union countries, it is quick to launch antitrust cases and punish companies that move quickly and break things. It is the Brussels vision that created the GDPR privacy rules, the right to be forgotten, and those damn cookie laws. Finally, there's the fast-developing Beijing internet, which is paternalistic, big brother or father, controller, and tightly controlled by the government. Back in the year 2000, Bill Clinton told a Chinese trade delegation that cracking down on the internet would be like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. Good luck. But over the last 20 years, the Chinese government has gradually brought the internet to heel, brought it under control through its doctrine of cyber sovereignty. They've done it slowly and cleverly. China's deep packet inspection technology checks what's coming in from the rest of the world, like the Brad from Carolina YouTube channel. IP addresses which they don't approve of, like the Brad from Carolina YouTube channel, are turned away. No access in China. All internet content providers are held liable for what appears on their websites under an insidious you yourself decide code. This would be in our lingo, it would be the honor code, which encourages everyone to turn into draconian self-censors to avoid trouble. See something, say something. Social dynamics. We're back to that. Where does the UK stand in all of this? It's hard to imagine our government, this is written from their perspective, of course, hard to imagine our government would have either the competence or the inclination to go as far as China. But what if the Beijing model is the future, the social credit system model? In his recent book, The Great Firewall of China. Not the Great Wall, The Great Firewall of China. Let's get you a look at that book, in case you're interested. The Great Firewall of China. Yeah, this is Amazon UK. How to build and control an alternative version of the internet. James Griffiths argues the Chinese model is starting to spread. Of course it is, because it provides the highest level of control. Most visibly in Africa, where various governments are happy to buy up cheap, decent Chinese technology, and in some cases the surveillance or AI technology that can help them stay in charge. Of course, that is the point. Not just in Africa, but globally. Although, as some analysts have argued, it's not always Beijing pushing the Beijing model, Western companies are also happy to assist snooping autocrats, snooping technocrats. And so our internet is getting increasingly authoritarian. While we might not import Chinese technology itself, especially after the problems with the Huawei and the 5G network, the promise of being in charge of the internet is certainly irresistible for a technocrat or anyone in charge and control right now. You may recall the Investigatory Powers Act of 2016, aka the Snoopers Charter, which among other things required internet companies to keep a record of the websites you visit for a year. Did you know that? You aware of that? Earlier this year, it was revealed that the government was testing a creepy new tool as part of this act. Surveillance technology that could track and record everything that every single person in the country does on the internet. Funny enough, the Chinese government cited the Snoopers Charters when defending their own draconian surveillance techniques. Once again, technocracy.news. This article, you want to go deeper on this? Here you go. Patrick Wood over there doing the good work of keeping people informed about the actual infrastructure of this thing we call a New World Order. So in this message today, in this broadcast today, we've talked about this term artificial intelligence has come up quite a few times. All right, so I've got some more information for you. The word artificial intelligence has become a marketing ploy, as a matter of fact. I've got a couple extra links in the description for you to check out. We'll look at this in just a minute. But first of all, let's take a look at this poll question we've got for you today. Let's go back here. Let's get this thing updated. And we're over 100. Excellent. Thank you, folks, for coming and voting in our poll question today. There it is. How often do you use cash when paying? You know, for food, buying gas, clothing bills, etc. Just anything. How often do you use cash when paying for stuff? And it's balanced out now. 30% almost never use cash. Almost 30% say they almost always pay with cash. So 56% of you say you use cash 1/3 of the time or less. "45% of you say to use cash 2/3 of the time or more." All right, so interesting how it's breaking down to just about 50-50. I don't think we should be awfully surprised about these results. You know, it's not as though we have a choice in a lot of cases. So let's check out any new comments we've got over here. David Green is in the house. He says, "I prefer to use cash, but unable to get access to many services out here in California without a card." Easy's in the house. Good to see you, Easy. Easy says, "Prefer to use cash as much as possible." Pandora's Luck says, "I try to spend more cash lately so they're not as likely to track my spending." See, people are aware. People are aware of what's going on, that you're being tracked by where you spend your money. They can still track my phone to see where I shop and use in-store cameras to see what we buy. Just wait. They will say cash is spreading the dreaded you-know-what, and we'll soon outlaw it. Of course, doesn't that seem like an obvious step in this process? Cash is so dirty, right? It's so dirty, and it makes people sick. In fact, liberty makes people sick. A lot of the news today that's being written, we know it's not real. It's not reporting what's really happening in the world. Just keep in mind that news is not intended for us here today. It's intended for the people who read it 10, 15 years, 20 years down the road when they look back at history and they say, wow, look what happened when people were free. Pandemics happened. Unrest in the streets. This is what freedom leads to. That's what they'll think, right? Because that's when they look back at these news articles. It'll be like Idiocracy, if you've ever seen that documentary film. So if you'd like to vote in that poll, it's pinned to the top of the live chat, or you can just go to the community tab on this YouTube channel. There's also a link on my Twitter feed right now for this poll. Now, what about artificial intelligence? Let's bring it on home with a little truth about artificial intelligence. This word, artificial intelligence, has just become a market employee, it seems like. Let me give you a look at this thing. There you go. Article from mindmatters.ai, an excellent website that I do suggest and encourage you to check out. You're going to get things from a Christian worldview here. Technology from a Christian worldview. That's rare. All right, they've interviewed the likes of John Lennox, all right, for example. So Justin Wang received a bachelor's degree from Murdoch University in 2012 with a grade average of 83.7 and a master's degree in information technology management from the University of Sydney in 2016. In January of 2017, he founded a Singapore-based company with the mysteriously cool name Scry. Boom, boom, boom. In order to, quote, manage information technology to achieve business goals, as well as, and perhaps more importantly, how it can be wielded to disrupt existing value networks. What's behind the mystery and jargon here? It turns out that Scry is a social forecasting platform. Users join for free and can enter their personal estimates of the probabilities that certain events will happen, with Scry calculating the average probability. For example, one question is this: Will Apple launch a commercial self-driving electric vehicle before the end of 2024? Now, as this is written, there are 18 responses entered up to 6 months ago. 8 answers are 50-50 and 2 are 100% yes. Overall, the average probability is 57%. Now, this seems like harmless fun, right? Inspired by the fickle wisdom of crowds. The wisdom of crowds, or perhaps the madness of crowds. One glaring weakness is that users see the probabilities others have chosen and the average value before they enter their own probabilities. And, if you notice poll questions, when you go read polls and vote in polls, it's better if you don't know what people have voted ahead of you, because it affects the way you vote. That's how we're made. All right, we're vulnerable that way. So the wisdom of crowds argument assumes that each individual assessment is made independently. The assumption is sometimes untrue and is surely false here in this case. Soon, Wang decided to monetize these predictions by creating ScryVantage. They say, let's see, where is it here? Creating ScryVantage. We turn any questions you have about the future into measurable and accurate predictions made through our proprietary artificial intelligence. No details given beyond the price, starting at $400 per prediction. Says, I suspect that if a question is already in the Scry database, then the user probabilities are the basis of the $400 plus answer. But I wasn't about to spend $400 to confirm this. In any case, the calculation of the average, of an average, or perhaps a weighted average, is hardly artificial intelligence. Right? Claiming, though, that this is artificial intelligence, giving you these numbers, these predictions. If a user pays $400 and asks a new question, then the question might be forwarded to Scry users, although that would take an embarrassingly long time. Perhaps Wang makes a semi-educated guess himself. Maybe he just asks a handful of friends to make semi-educated guesses. Maybe he Googles the question and sees what turns up. It's almost certainly the case that there is no true AI algorithm churning data for an answer here, since computers don't understand what words mean. Get that one more time. Back up. Computers don't understand what words mean. They're not intelligent. They will never be intelligent. Intelligence is created by God. So these algorithms have no way of processing what questions actually mean. Ransacking Wikipedia to find the names of companies that make electric vehicles is qualitatively different from estimating the probability that a certain company will make a certain kind of vehicle by a certain date. But nonetheless, that's how these systems are working. The Scry website gives absolutely no information about their proprietary artificial intelligence. It's just a name. Once again, what's the title of this article? The word artificial intelligence has become a marketing ploy. The attitude seems to be that we call it artificial intelligence, and that's all you need to know. The word artificial intelligence was selected by the Association of National Advertisers. Did you know that? The word artificial intelligence was selected by the Association of National Advertisers as the marketing word of the year in 2017. And too often, it seems that artificial intelligence has become just a marketing ploy, like .com was during the .com bubble. Scry is a small but clear example of the presumption by too many businesses that people will be impressed by anything that advertises itself as artificial intelligence. This reminds me of a few years ago when high-definition television started, HD TV, and then all of a sudden you started seeing it in like HD sunglasses, the new Ford HD. It ended up everywhere because it became seared in people's consciousness as something that is quality and clear, and everybody wants it. Larger scale examples are OpenAI's CLIP image recognition algorithm, which claims to use artificial intelligence to understand words, but it doesn't because it can't. And OpenAI's GPT-3 text-generating algorithm, which claims to use artificial intelligence to write meaningful prose, but it doesn't because it can't. Have you been onto a website recently, maybe your bank's website or insurance company or some corporation's website where they offer, maybe Amazon, for example, where they offer a chat service where you can chat with an expert. No, you're going to chat with a computer, with a bot. And they'll call this artificial intelligence. And it's very bad. Very bad. It works on a rudimentary way. If you're just very basic with it, it can follow you. But it's got responses that it pulls from. It's not sitting there thinking and communicating with you. He says here, I'm reminded of long-term capital management, a hedge fund launched in 1994 by Salomon Brothers superstar John Meriwether. He put together a dream team that included several MIT PhDs who had worked for Meriwether at Salomon, Myron Scholes and Robert C. Merton, who would win Nobel Prizes, and David Mullins, another MIT PhD who left his position as vice chairman on the Federal Reserve Board. So what could go wrong? Right, with these guys. The minimum investment was $10 million, and the only thing investors were told about long-term, about this company's strategy, was that the management fees would be 2% of assets plus 25% of profits. A legendary portfolio manager named Dave told me that he had been pitched by long-term, but chose not to invest because the only thing he knew for certain was that they were greedy. Other investors were not so cautious. Long-term raised more than $1 billion based on what? Just promises. After a few stellar years, long-term crashed in 1998. After the collapse, Meriwether promptly launched a new hedge fund named JWM Partners. It crashed in 2009, but of course they got what they wanted out of it, billions. And Meriwether started yet another hedge fund called JM Advisors Management, and people continued to invest with them. Same thing here. The idea being artificial intelligence is this thing, this idea that's out there that's making its way through the consciousness. Warren Buffett has often warned, quote, never invest in a business you don't understand. Nobody understands artificial intelligence because it's not a thing. It's not there. It's not real. Dave heeded that advice when long-term came looking for his money. We should all heed that advice when a person or company says they're using artificial intelligence and doesn't give a clear explanation of what exactly that means. Don't trust an artificial intelligence algorithm that you don't understand. And I think that's relevant for us today. And there's another article that's in the description for you today. What 5 new cities tell us about the future of urban planning. Of course, these cities are going to be managed, digital governance, artificial intelligence. Many historians argue urban planning originated in China. Contemporaneous history pre-10,000 BC is very difficult to verify. But it's safe to say they were among the very first. Today, no nation is endeavoring to construct more cities from scratch than China. In fact, China has ghost cities. Many, many ghost cities. There are no people there, but they're smart cities that are built. Since the Communist Party came to power in 1949, more than 600 new cities have been developed. Urban China, as it exists today, did not exist 40 years ago. 600 new cities. China's latest effort is the staggering Tianfu Ecological City, a 1.3 square kilometer green city outside Chengdu. Developed by Beijing Vantone Real Estate Company, Tianfu is China's vision of an environmentally sensitive future. Considering China's importance in fighting for our climate, the types of innovation at Tianfu will be critical. Tianfu Ecological City will use 48% less energy and 58% less water. It doesn't use any energy right now because no people live there than a conventional development of a similar population, producing an estimated 89% less landfill waste while generating 60% less carbon dioxide. Of course, if you've got smaller human beings that you've engineered, you could create less waste. That's the theory. Does that work? The small community is part of a larger effort to turn Chengdu, the 5th most populous city in the world, with 16 million people, into a park city. Work has been going on for years, since approved in 2014, now nearing completion, designed to remove the need for cars, Sustainable Development Goal, by having daily life within a 15-minute walk. walkable communities, walkable cities. So that's not a terrible idea when you think of it in terms of, hey, everything is just nearby. That sounds good. That's not really the point. It's not to make things convenient for you. Remember the idea of convenience and safety. The most safe people in the world live in prisons. The people with the most convenient lives live in prison. They're fed every day. Be careful with safety and convenience as a standard. Lush green spaces and blue skies in Chengdu's Tianfu new area offer a new image of urban China that the Chinese government sees as the future of urban development. The success of Chengdu Tianfu new areas, green spaces, environmentally friendly infrastructure, and walkable nature could be a much-needed change in urban planning for the world's fastest growing economy. The model for the world, of course. So that's, once again, these articles linked for you in the description with other things there for you to check out as well. Let me remind you also what we're getting into tomorrow. We're headed down to this Charismatic revival here. We want to go there and hopefully, possibly meet these folks. I don't know. We're not there to cause trouble. We're there to share the gospel, the pure gospel, because I've watched these folks now, many of their videos, and their revival wells of revival, I believe is what it's called. And there's no gospel there. The gospel's not there. A gospel's being preached, but it's not a biblical gospel. So, we're headed there. And so if you'd like to help us out with that, there's links in the description if you want to help us afford some of those costs down there. Let me show you what, we showed this the other day on the Who is Jesus episode. And, this is not it. It's Saturate Global. And so when you get there, what you find out about the group is some interesting things. This is obviously Revival Wells. That's what it's called. It's a charismatic movement. They're on a tour right now. They were in Philadelphia and then Kentucky, and then this weekend, North Carolina. We're headed there. And what's interesting about the movement is their message. You want to declare with us. They're igniting revival. What we're talking about here is a 7 mountain mandate. This idea, it's an errant form of dominion theology. The idea that we have to infiltrate all areas of the world, the 7 major spheres. We've got family, religion, economy, education, government, and others. That's not what we're called to do. We're not called to take over the government. We're not called to take over the world. We're called to make disciples of all nations. And I'm sure they would tell you that that's what they're doing, but we're not seeing actual evidence of that. See lots of baptisms, but no gospel. No strict, no strong Bible-based message. There's a Bible there, and people are saying things from it, but there are problems. They're igniting revival and reformation. Now, what do they mean by reformation? We're not sure. That's what I hope to find out tomorrow. I get maybe some definition of these terms. To see sustained kingdom advancement, personal transformation. And that's what most of this is about. It's about personal transformation. Declaring and decreeing. They decree America shall be saved. Now, I don't know. You're speaking for God. You're decreeing that America shall be saved. How can you decree that? What power do you have to make any decree or to declare anything? Just as in the spirit of Cane Ridge, Azusa Street, Brownsville, and Toronto revivals, the Welsh revival, the Great Awakenings, they decree God's supernatural power is being breathed into his people, and they're being moved by the wind of the Holy Spirit. They decree that the glory of the Lord is covering the earth, and the manifest presence of God will be revealed in the earth. So they're commanding the Holy Spirit. It's dangerous stuff. So we want to make sure that the people that are there are exposed to the gospel. So let's see, if we click on the join the team, What are some of the things that they train people to do? If I can find it again. Get involved. Train. Here you go. Vision to equip and empower the saints for the work of the ministry. Some of the training that gets done there is they'll train you to heal. They'll train you to prophesy. So you can see these are some of the problems we're talking about. How do you train someone to heal? How do you train anybody in a spiritual gift? Now, I'll make the statement here. I'm not one who is going to say that that all the charismatic gifts are not for today. I just don't think they're normative. I don't think that we should expect them. A lot of talk about visions here. Should visions be an expected part of ministry today? No, it's not normal. It's not normal. It's not something that, but it is here. The visions are a regular part of their ministry. We've got God's word. We're taking the gospel to all the world. Why would visions be necessary? The gospel should lead. So anyway, that's what we're going to do tomorrow. If you want to help us do that, links in the description if you'd like to partner with us in this endeavor. We just want to make sure. There's a lot of people that I've watched their meetings before, and a lot of people get baptized, and I don't know, because they can't see what's going on off camera, whether these people are being discipled at all. Do they understand the gospel? Do they even know why they need to be baptized? Do they have any understanding of what their condition is? Have they been evangelized? Has anyone explained to them what their condition is? That they're dead in sin and trespasses, that the purpose of the gospel is not so I can feel better. It's not so I can have a great time here in the earth. It's salvation. Saved from what? From a just and wrathful God. Jesus didn't die on that cross for us to have prosperous lives and abundant lives here in this world. He died on that cross for us to have everlasting life with him in his kingdom, which is the reward. And so the pure gospel is that you were dead. And we'll make sure that, just since we're doing this, I want to make sure that we've covered this. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. Oh, let's see, I'm getting alerts here. We'll go to 1 Corinthians 15, one of the, probably, as far as we can tell anyway, the oldest manuscript fragments or copies that's available today where the gospel is presented, just from around even the generation, near the generation when Jesus was before his death and resurrection. 1 Corinthians 15, where the Apostle Paul says, "Now I'd remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you're being saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain." So he's there to make sure, to reaffirm, here's the truth. Here's the gospel. This is what I believe is these people who show up to these revivals are missing. They don't know this. "For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received." Now that means it hasn't been changed. What Christ gave him, he's giving us purely. And that is that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas and to the 12. So he was resurrected, and there was evidence of it. Then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles, and last of all, Paul says, to me he appeared, one untimely born after the rest of these. He says, "For I am the least of the apostles, unworthy to be called an apostle." So should we see people going around today proclaiming themselves to be apostles? The Apostle Paul says, I'm unworthy to even be called this. And he says it's because I persecuted the church of God, and we all have done that with our sin nature at some point. But by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace toward me was not in vain. On the contrary, I worked harder than any of them. Though it was not I, but it was the grace of God that is with me. Whether it was I or they, so we preach, and so you believed. If Christ is proclaimed as raised from the dead, how can some of you say there is no resurrection? So he's talking to a specific group here that deny resurrection. And of course, let's finish it up here. Let's make sure that we give a gospel presentation. Ephesians 2, chapter 1, you were dead. It's not a figure of speech. You were dead. Dead men don't respond. You were dead in trespasses and sin in which you once walked, following the course of this world. This is the encyclical that Paul wrote from prison. It's addressed to the church at Ephesus, but it's for many other churches as well. And we were all following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind. So what is your condition? What is the condition you're found in? Dead. We're not worthy of salvation. The message that's preached in this movement we're going to tomorrow is that, yes, you're worthy. You're so good. You can help Jesus. Now, this is the bad news. We were dead. Have nothing to offer God, least of all anything toward our salvation. The bad news. We were all supporting the prince of the power of the air in our sin nature. Now, the good news, verse 4. But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By a grace you have been saved, and raised up with him, and seated with us, with him, in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, so that in the coming ages he might show the immeasurable riches of his grace in kindness toward us in Christ Jesus. Once again, verse 8, to make it clear, for by grace you have been saved through faith, not anything you can do. There is no path to follow, as Max Egan said. And just the baptism at these particular revivals, people who show up to get baptized, that's not enough either. By grace, you've been saved through faith. How do you get that? If you were saved by grace through faith, how do you get the faith? Well, it says here, it's not your own doing. You didn't do anything to get it. It is the gift of God. It's not a result of works, so that no one may boast. And this is because we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works from before the beginning, from before the earth, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. All right, so let's see what we have here. Got thank you Famunda for that support, for that donation. I don't see it here in the. I'm trying to find it in the chat where we had either super chats or something there that I missed a minute ago. But thank you Famunda for that donation. Thank you very much. That'll help us out. Yeah, I don't know. There is definitely something up there, but I don't see it in the chat history. Yeah, anyway, I took the poll question, the pinned poll question away. It's not there anymore. I was trying to see what that came from. Let me look over here and see. I want the person who did that to get... Yeah, Streamlabs is not reporting it either.
Yes, it came through.
Well, it came through on the chat? Okay, all right, so it came through on the chat. My producer has told me. So thank you, Famunda, for that. Thank you very much for your support and for helping us out. There's also something called here that YouTube offers if you guys want to take advantage. I know that super chats are available here, and because some people say it's just easier they'd rather do it that way, and that's fine. So there's something called, there's super chat and super stickers, but there's also something called a super thanks. You can find that in the videos. It's a new thing. I don't know, it's not that important really, but I thought I'd mention it. It's some new kind of way to support through the on the YouTube side here. But we would encourage you, if you would, to support Armor of Truth, and you can find in the description, it's linked there. You can donate directly to the Armor of Truth, PayPal. It's available for you. And some donation links pop up in the chat from time to time there too, if Streamlabs is doing its job, and I think it is today. So thank you for that. We appreciate your support. More than anything, we need your prayers. And I'm specifically asking you for your prayers because tomorrow it's a little bit nerve-wracking to go into someone else's turf. And it's like Paul Washer said, here we are as Christians, and we go and we show up to a place and people are celebrating with their gods, quote unquote, and we show up to tell them, you're wrong. All your gods are false. So, prayers, please. I ask you for prayers in that because it's a daunting task sometimes, and of course, it would be by His Holy Spirit that would be guided and all that. Tell us, don't worry about or think about what you'll say in the moment. Of course, I'll be prepared, but pray for us if you would, that people would receive the gospel there, and that something good would happen in this encounter. All right, so the question from the chat, well, we've got some questions that people are asking here. How long are we? 2 hours and 15 minutes. Okay, yeah, we can do a few minutes here of some questions. If you have a question or a comment you want to send my way, you can address it in the live chat to Summer here for the next few minutes, and I'll if I can answer it, if I can address it, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you I can't. But the question from God's will. If you know how to address something to someone in the live chat, you just put the @ sign and then their chat name, and that way Summer will see it. God's will asks, Brad, what is your opinion regarding voting? My belief is that it's a social program wherein those who participate vote their God-given power away. Politics equals idolatry. Well, if we trust the Bible, if we believe God's word, these authorities are here because God is sovereign, because He allows it. So I wouldn't agree that politics is idolatry. I agree it's not the government that's evil or idolatrous. It's the heart of man that's idolatrous. That's where idolatry comes from, is man's heart. So what about voting, though? Well, I would always say I would leave that up to you personally to decide. The one area I would definitely comment and give advice on is you have to get involved with your local government. Understanding who's working in there, who's your mayor, who's your town planner. Today with Agenda 21 marching forward, one of the most important people in your life is the town manager, the guy who decides zoning, whether this place is going to be residential, whether this place is going to be business, how it's going to all be done. Is the public-private going to merge in your area? Because that's not good for you. So as far as voting, yeah, you have to get involved in your local government. I'm sure the question here is probably more aimed at, voting for president or Congress or Senate or whatever. Decide for yourself whether those systems are working for you or not. But I would say absolutely vote, get involved in your local government, because that's where the things are happening. That's where the agenda for the 21st century is being implemented right under your nose. So I wouldn't say that we vote our God-given power away. What God holds in His hands, nothing and nobody can take out of His hand. And of course, Romans 13 and also Peter also tells us that, look, these authorities are there because God has allowed it. Whether they're evil or not is not the point. God has allowed it. God allows Satan to exist. Okay? So Evil's here with us. God hasn't created it. Evil is the privation of good. Evil exists because our heart is fallen. So once again, it's not the government that's evil. It's man's heart. So look at it that way. Make up your own mind what you want to do at the federal and state level, but absolutely, we have to get involved in our local governments, or that's where we'll lose. That's where we'll lose our freedom and liberty. Joseph F. is asking, should we abstain from pork? Not in a biblical sense, but you might want to just for your health. Yeah, I think it's probably a good idea to stay away from pork. They've got this trichinosis, this type of parasite that lives in the pork that it's hard to kill, doesn't cook out all that well. So I wouldn't make any biblical claims about it. I don't think we're under Mosaic laws. If you like barbecue, eat it to the glory of the Lord. I don't know, but just I would also be careful with pork because there's, could be that pork has caused a lot of, this is just my opinion. This is not advice in any way, but it could be that pork has caused a lot of the arthritis issues that we see in the world today. I don't eat it very much, if at all. I don't remember the last time I had it, but I wouldn't make it a doctrinal issue at all. Joseph F. said, when you vote, you consent to their con job, says Joseph. Yeah, voting is a form of consent. So that's why I'm not saying you decide what you think is best to do with federal and state elections and voting in that way. But the one piece of advice I will always give is we have to get involved in our local governments and go to your town council meetings, find out what's happening. We don't do that. We watch the news and we read the internet about Joe Biden and his administration. But we don't know what's happening down at City Hall. That's the first place we ought to be. Pandora's luck is what it says. Could you ask Brad, what you're doing right now, if he thinks this Trump challenge to votes could see him overturned? I wouldn't put much faith in that at all. Now, Pandora's luck kind of, I think you might be, Mike Lindell over the past couple of days has been running this 72-hour live stream on his website. Let's just look at it. It's called Frank Speech. Yeah, Mike Lindell, the pillow guy. Yeah, frankspeech.com. And they've had trouble from the get-go here. It might be over now. I don't know. But anyway, here you go. They've had trouble from the get-go. I mean, I think they got attacked. I mean, he's an outspoken guy. He is a Christian. I mean, he's claiming to be anyway. Oh, boy, it's because I'm not logged in. Hang on, we'll take a look at it. Let me just do this first. Here you go. Take a look at that for a minute as I do this. Because what Lindell is doing out here is challenging the validity of this vote that we've just had. All right, I wonder if they'll let me log in. All right, yeah, it let me log in. So anyway, here you go. This is what's happening over at frankspeech.com. 72 hours of what do we call it here? Evidence and discussion showing us how the election was stolen. Now, what's my position on this? I think it's stolen every year. I don't think it's been legitimate since Kennedy or before. That's just my opinion. But I can respect what these guys are doing here. They seem to be putting together a movement to, at the very least, maybe restore some integrity to the voting, to the election system here. I don't know. You make up your own mind about this. But it's been going on now for a couple days. Expert after expert, lawyer after lawyer, internet expert, hackers, everybody is showing up there to explain how this happened and how they did it. So go check it out if you want to, if you're into that. But I'm always going to say the same thing. Local government. Do that first. So that's what Pandora's luck maybe is asking about. This Trump challenge to votes could see him overturned. I wouldn't count on it. Pandora's luck says to overturn the presidency so that they can get more folks to sign up for the poison. Possibly. I don't know. Kelly Hintz says, you changed my entire view on voting, you and Rob Tick. I'll vote locally and go to the city council meetings from now on. I was going to pull my voter registration. Changed my mind. Thank you. Yeah, it's a good idea. You don't, make up your mind about the federal and the state. Like if I lived in South Dakota, my opinion about voting in the state election might be different. I don't know. But I do know this much. This past November, I was there and spent more time on the local elections than I did the federal stuff. So that's where it's being done around you, right in your own backyard, where the public and the private are being merged together. That's where you see Agenda 21 taking shape. Get involved with it, folks. Yeah, so frankspeech.com, check it out if you want, if you're into that and you think that that's worth your time. I know it's been kind of interesting. I've checked it out for a couple hours so far. I don't know how much of it I trust or believe, but it's there for you. Make up your own mind about it. So, yeah, 2 hours. All right, so 2.5 hours, we'll probably keep it at there. Keep it at that time so we don't go too far today. It's burning up in here, as a matter of fact, too. So, thank you for being with us today, folks. Our poll question ended up. The results, let's see here. How often do you use cash today? 117 votes are in. There it is. 30% say never. 26% say always use cash. 56% of you use cash 1/3 of the time or less. 43% of you say you use it to 2/3 of the time or more. Interesting. All right, let's see. Any more comments in here today? Angel C says, we withdrew all our cash. The only money in the bank is my check, and it pays the bills. Usually everything else we pay cash. There you go. There's taking a stance. Interesting. Good. I like it. Greta English says, it's definitely easier to use a card in New York City, but I try to take out cash for spending money. I hate when certain places make you use a card, like Sweet Greens, one of those fancy salad places. When they make you use a card, yeah, that's, I guess, more and more. And I guess now with these mitigation policies, for health reasons or whatever, yeah, you're probably not going to be able to use cash in a restaurant in some places. Who knows how it's going to all come down? What we know for sure is that the pendulum swings back and forth in our society, and right now it's swung all the way over to socialist, progressive, whatever other terminology you want to come up with. It's all the way over on that side. At some point, it'll have to swing back the other way. I'm not saying that's necessarily always good, but things change. And I don't think we want to get in the habit of giving this globalist movement too much credit. Don't give Satan too much credit. Don't give him too much attention or authority, because he is, I think that happens to us sometimes. We have three opponents to look out for. It's the flesh, the world, and Satan and the devil. So don't be so focused on Satan that you forget about your own flesh, because your own flesh will lead you astray too. Don't be so focused on Satan that you forget about the world. All three of them are our enemies, and we're fighting against all three at the same time. All right, my friends. Appreciate you being with us today. God bless you. Once again, Who is Jesus study tomorrow won't be live tomorrow. We'll be on the road, but be on the lookout for a live stream to pop up without any notice, probably at some point in the afternoon or evening from the revival. We'll see how that goes. And I do ask you once again, pray for us both as we go to do this, because it's going to be nerve-wracking. Being pointed. I was just about to get out of here, I think, but we got another question. All right. Are you turning off your phone for the test? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means? Sorry, all chemistry. Chemistry. I guess I missed something there. Are you still in the chat there? All chemistry. Turning off your phone for the test. I don't know. Give us a link, man. Give us something to follow there. I usually know what folks are talking about, but I'm thoroughly confused on that one. Should I turn my phone off right now? Is that the point? All right, folks, we'll leave it there for today. Do appreciate you helping us out, supporting us, and your prayers. We need that more than anything. Let's take you out with the old school outro song. God bless you, my friends. We'll see you again live here, Lord willing, over the weekend.
Armor of Truth, live.
Oh, it's a FEMA test. Some kind of FEMA test. We'll check it out. Check it out.
I'm not against technology, Doctor. I'm against the men who deify it at the expense of human truth.
God bless John Wayne. I'm not against technology, Doctor. I'm against the men who deify it at the expense of human truth.